What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's daily market recap. In today's episode, I'm going to break down my trades from the morning. I'm sitting in the green today. I traded 3 stocks and I'm green on all 3, which is pretty good. But today felt a little slow. And this week has been kind of interesting because Monday was quite slow. Then I'm going to mute my scanner alerts there so I don't get distracted. Monday was quite slow. And then Tuesday, we had some fantastic momentum. I had one of the biggest green days I've had in probably a couple months. And then yesterday, Wednesday, another slow day. And today when I sat down, I didn't think it was going to be very hot for a specific reason. Where was the momentum yesterday? All right, so let's jump onto the charts and start breaking it down. So my goal each day as a trader is to find stocks that are moving. I don't make money buying something at 5 and selling it at 5. I need volatility. So each day when I sit down, the first thing I'm looking at are naturally my scanners. So this is the software that I use right here. This whole platform is the software. This is called Day Trade Dash. And this is what you can subscribe to over at Warrior Trading. I'll put the link for the 2-week trial in the description of this episode in the top of the comments. It's $20 for 2 weeks. Now, this is the software that I started developing in 2017, and it began initially with just creating the chat room. But eventually we branched out and added scanners and then news feed and charts and everything else to what it is today. Now, when I first sit down, even before I actually map my computer, I pull up on my phone the scanners, and what I'm looking to see are what are our leading gainers. But I also do that usually later in the evening. And so last night, before kind of settling down, I pulled up my scans and checked to see what stocks were the leading percentage gainers. And I saw ICCT made, it was IXHL, sorry. IXHL made this really huge move yesterday. So it had a low of about 10 cents a share and went all the way up to $1.15. A 1,335% move on over 1.5 billion shares of volume. 1.5 billion shares of volume. That's incredible. I mean, that's a huge amount of volume. So this was the stock that a lot of people were focusing on yesterday. And although, yes, it was moving up in the pre-market session, at that time I was trading other stocks because I typically don't do well trading these lower priced names. For me, and it's kind of interesting, but from the very beginning of my career, I never did very well on penny stocks. What's funny though, is that one of the things that kind of got me back into the market were penny stocks, because I had a friend in high school who made $16,000 trading a penny stock. And I thought, man, if he could have done that in high school, then, that gave me some hope. So when I got back into the market, I funded my first account in 2001, but then I was out for a while and, kind of doing regular stuff because I wasn't successful with that first account. So when I came back, I was like, you know what, I'm going to try to find penny stocks. And what I found was that a lot of penny stocks, and especially in those days, were on the OTC market, and you would just see these incredible squeezes, but then unbelievable drops, where they would drop. I mean, they basically give back the entire move. So essentially your classic pump and dump. The problem with the OTC market was in those days, when you placed an order, you sometimes had to wait 15, 20, 30 minutes for your order to fill. So you would just be sitting there waiting for your order to fill. And meanwhile, the price is moving. So it was just so antiquated at that time that I couldn't find success there. So I ended up focusing instead on NASDAQ and NYSE, New York Stock Exchange listed companies, which were a little higher price. They tend to be, because both of these exchanges require a minimum price of $1 a share. Although, as we know, stocks do fall below $1 and can remain below $1 for a period of time before they get delisted to the OTC markets. So IXHL currently is an example of a NASDAQ listed company that is not in compliance from the minimum price standpoint, but is still listed. So anyways, yesterday made this remarkable move, but I just sort of disregarded it, didn't trade it. Anyways, but this was by far the stock with the highest volume yesterday. If we look at the stock with the highest volume today, it's CLIK. So Click Holdings, Hong Kong company that went from 25 cents to $1.10. Very similar move. So not surprising, Because after yesterday's big move on a penny stock, what were traders looking for? The next penny stock that they can load up at 15, 20, or 30 cents and hold all the way to $1 a share and make a 3x return. Now, that's not the way I typically think of trading, going all in and trying to double or triple my money in one trade. I'm more in the mentality of jumping in, getting a little profit, getting out, getting in, getting out, getting in, getting out. And the only way to make money on lower price stocks is to buy a lot of shares. But when you buy a lot of shares with a broker like what I use, you'll have, yes, fast executions with my broker, but you'll have commissions. You won't have commission-free trading. So you'll pay a higher rate, and that rate is calculated on a per share basis because of the routing fees. So the result is that I did not trade CLIK today. I didn't trade IXHL yesterday. But I recognize that this is currently the theme in the market, that this is what people are paying attention to. This is what they're interested in. So I kind of have no choice but to wait it out. However, there was a stock that I was interested in, and right now it's actually moving a little bit higher, KDLY. So what's the story with KDLY? Well, this is a stock that made a huge move back here. Look at this move, squeezed up, dropped down, all the way up to the high. So this was on Monday. Now, although I didn't trade it as well as I would have liked to have traded it on Monday, I did make money on it. It was the stock I had done the best on. So we had this really nice squeeze on Monday, and then it sold off most of the day. In fact, it sold off a little bit more on Tuesday, and it sold off a little bit more on Wednesday. And then down here this morning, it started to pop up a little bit. And so the setup that I was looking at on here was potentially the first daily candle to make a new high. And it looks like we're about to see that happen right now. Now, I got in a little early, and I got a couple nice trades on it. And it looks like I've left a little money on the table. However, as you can see, there have been a couple of false breakouts right there and right there. And so as it goes up here for this sort of next attempt, I would question whether or not it's going to run into ascending resistance right around here. But nonetheless, I don't think I want to go in for another stab at it because it just keeps giving us these topping tails, which tells us that it can squeeze up, but sellers are stronger. So, look, this one still has potential. It was the best looking one this morning, but at this point, 10:15 a.m., I'm coming to the time of day where statistically I'm more likely to take a loss. So my accuracy decreases sort of as the day goes on. I have high accuracy between about 7 a.m. and 10 a.m., but then as we get past 10 a.m., that's when I start to see declining accuracy. I think some of it is from decision fatigue. Some of it is just from the market having lighter volume as we get a little further into the day. Even though you might have a stock that, in this case, is increasing, generally it's sort of a decrease versus the open. And so I find that I don't do as well at this time of day. And so for me, even if this ends up doing exactly what I was hoping it would do, which would be break 1025 and squeeze up to 11 or 12, I think I'm going to have to let it do it without me. But I can't complain too much. I'm sitting up $16,280.55, which is a solid green day. And the majority of that profit came from KDLY. Now, if we pull up my metrics from the month of May, last week was fantastic. It was so consistent. I was just locking up $28,000, $30,000, $40,000 a day, like super consistent. And so last week ended up being a really good week. But then Monday was only 8,500. I peaked at 12,000 and then gave back about half, or maybe it was 15,000. Gave back about half. Then Tuesday was 85,000, which was terrific. That was actually the biggest day I've had in quite some time. Possibly one of the bigger days of the year. And then yesterday was $9,000, right? Kind of slower. And now today, 16,000, not bad, but not exactly what I was hoping for. So as I sit here on the year, I'm at $1.8 million, averaging a solid $20,000 per day with about 73% accuracy. Now, I'll say as always, my results aren't typical. I share this with you not because I want you to assume that you'll be able to achieve the same result as me, but I think it's important that you know the person that you're learning from has a very well-established track record. So that's $1.8 million this year. Now we go back, and I've been using this software here since 2016. So this is my 10th year of data in this platform, and I've got $16 million of profit here. I mean, this is a really well-established track record of trading certain time of day, certain type of stock. And really, when I stay focused in that area, I tend to do quite well. So I think, KDLY gaining a little attention here. It is sort of the most obvious stock at this current moment, but I don't know how long it's going to hold the spotlight before attention shifts. So anyways, good to see it going a little higher without me. Left some money on the table, but grateful to be green, and that'll be that. So ATXG, this is the next stock, one of the next stocks I traded. This one squeezed from about 50 cents a share to $5 in one candle. My only trades on it were dips. I bought dips, sold on pops, bought dips, sold on pops, bought dips, sold on pops. It had a headline of soaring on an $800 million plan to acquire Bitcoin and official Trump. Okay, but how are they going to raise? So then I'm like doing the math on this. I'm like, okay, $800 million? How much is this company even worth? 5 million share float times $1 a share is $5.7 million. So I'm like, the company's not even worth $800 million. How are they going to buy $800 million worth of Bitcoin? Now, if they had done a private placement and received that money from an institutional investor, that would be like, okay. And essentially this would be becoming a cryptocurrency holding company. But instead, the headline is, when you actually dig into it, is that they're going to sell, their plan is to sell shares to raise $800 million to then spend that money on buying Bitcoin. So now that's a little bit of a problem, because they're going to sell they're going to have to sell, at the current price of $1 a share, they'd have to sell 800 million shares. So that would dilute the value of the entire company in such a huge way, it's almost unthinkable. In fact, there's not enough volume. If you added up the cumulative volume over the last, let's just say 6 months, you've only got like 31 million shares of volume. So you'd have to go back years to accumulate 800 million shares. So I don't know how they're possibly, this goes back to June of 2023. Let's just go back a couple of years. You're still at only 67 million shares of volume. So it's a stock that tends to trade on very light volume. I don't see how they're possibly going to achieve this. So I think maybe once the reality set in there, that's what drove the price back down. In any case, made $3,000 on that, taking a little dip trades on it. And then CREV, this one, took a trade on this break of VWAP right here. And when I first pulled it up, it was early, it was moving, and I was looking at that pre-market high there as my target. And that was also very close to the 200 moving average. So that was sort of resistance, but I was sort of thinking we might squeeze up to that level. So in any case, got a little trade on CREV. That was actually my first trade of the day. Then the trade on KDLY. Then the last trade was ATXG. And so finishing with $16,280.55. And for those of you guys that want to continue learning about trading, I'll put links to a couple episodes right here, and I'll put another one right there. And I'll, as always, leave the link where you can do a 2-week trial at Warrior Trading. 2 weeks for 20 bucks. I think you'll really enjoy it. So reminder, as always, trading is risky. Please practice these new strategies you're learning in a simulator before putting real money on the line. And I'll see you live streaming bright and early for members at Warrior Trading, 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. All right, I'll see you then.